Hey, it's that time again. Welcome back to PLACE Navigators, episode 13. Chris, what's on the docket today?
And we're going to talk about the three hottest topics in the real estate industry
Ooh,
today.
sounds
And yeah, it's going to get really good. And let's also kind of look back at some of the past stuff that we've talked about. Our last episode, we talked about recapping, uh, debunking three myths and a hack for choosing real estate teams versus solo agents. So you guys need to go back and look at that episode. There's a really good hack in there for you guys to utilize in your real estate search. Bro,
yeah,
let's dive in, man. Let's get into this.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, Chris, the news of the hour, like you'd have to be living in a cave or under a rock. I guess we've got like the political season going on, but simultaneously to that has been a lot of talk around the National Association of Realtors, a proposed settlement that's currently being disputed, the opinions of the DOJ regarding that, and here's what I find fascinating is the real estate industry kind of got some attention about they're part of this thing, and then meanwhile the attorneys who lead this class action lawsuit are taking 40% of the settlement. So I've always built my
What?
business
Wait a
around
second, Joe.
it.
Are you telling me that there was a whole entire dispute about commissions?
Yeah.
And what's the average? What do you think the average commission is on other between a sell and a buy? What do you think the average is?
I mean, transaction wide and nationwide, Chris, like I see everything from 1 to 10%. And
Yeah,
and so, like the
but you
super
said
high end
what?
is 10%, and this thing's like 40%. And yeah, it's being alleged that, the real estate community in large is committed to, some disingenuous acts. And so that's why I say it's alleged confusion and collusion, because here's what I know is true. I know that when you've worked with our organization, that we believe clarity is our secret weapon, and we believe in setting an expectation and no surprises and no gotcha fees and none of that, so that you know exactly what you're going into when you begin in engagement with us. So keeping it kind of at that nationwide purview, a great question because it varies state by state, it varies by MLS, it varies by in the realtor association versus out, is what are the real changes. So for the professional and the consumer alike, the changes are the same. And really what it is it's stating and restating that there is no law on commissions and that they're negotiable. But Chris, what's been true from like the beginning of time?
You know, it's just kind of like one of those flea markets that we used to go to, the bazaars while I was in Afghanistan. They would tell you a price of something, of some kind of marble vase or something like that whenever
Yeah,
you go there. But it was all negotiable, like just like our commissions, just
it's always
it's
been negotiable.
negotiable. It's
Yeah,
always been negotiable.
yeah,
And that's something that your realtor should be providing you those laws right away, so that way like that it is negotiable.
yeah,
And that's been a standard practice of our team. I could tell you that, and place.
yeah.
Uh, Make sure you provide those right off the bat, even before this NAR settlement.
Exactly. When we're building a business, we don't look to turn and burn our clientele. We look to build a long-term relationship with them, so much so that they trust us to help them in the future. They trust us to help them with their friends and family. And at Place Navigators, we like to take the perspective of creating content that not only is valuable to a consumer, but it's valuable to a practitioner as well. So here is what the consumer and the practitioner needs to know. There's going to be some form changes depending on where you're at, what state you're in, what MLS you're in, and what they're going to do is they're going to convey in more clear language and restate things about how commissions are not fixed and that they are negotiable. And what we found is that there's Not a lot of change in practicality, but because it got so much media, there is a lot of misinformation. And the biggest myth I hear is that the buyer's agent commission is being eliminated. Now, for clarity, it's always been negotiable. And second, it could always have been zero. It's just not recommended. And there's reasons why we recommend that. We might get into that, or we might say, let's talk about that if that's you and you have questions about it. The seller does typically choose to pay a buyer commission to entice not only a buyer who wants representation, but also a buyer's agent who has a database of buyers to motivate them to help find a client that they have to buy the property. So in the absence of a commission, I think there's a few things that a property seller should consider. One is that you are going to remove the motivation of hundreds, if not thousands of realtors in your area to sell your property. Now, sometimes we have some hot markets and it feels like maybe it's not going to take a lot to sell that property. Well, there's a whole other onion there to dissect that we don't have time for today. But trust me, you'll want to understand both sides of that coin before you engage in that. Second, you increase the money a buyer would have to bring to the table for closing unless they are a cash buyer. 60 to 75% of our buyers have the need or the want to use a loan. And so you don't want to put that person in that situation where all of a sudden they're priced out of your property because of the fee structure, when it was just as easy to price the property in a way that covered all the fees that were necessary in order to complete the transaction. So here's the moral of it all, Chris, because we got two more we got to hit. And the moral of it all is look for additional disclosures to reiterate what has always been true. That is that there is a value to engaging the real estate community to get the highest price for your home or the best deal possible, and commissions are negotiable. And with that being said, Chris, what is the second hottest topic in the real estate community?
We've covered this in our previous episodes, and we've talked about the builder community. In an earlier episode, we talked about how you typically don't save money using the builder's agent and how they actually don't represent you or your best interests, and they often shortcut the process to benefit the builder, not the consumer. So, and that's you guys, everybody that's on here looking at a new home, you are the consumer. They're not going to benefit you, plain and simple. The newest trend is a change in builders' policies with the real estate community. They're always looking for ways to make it so you don't have to pay buyers agents. See, they're trying to cut costs. Those builders, they're trying to cut costs everywhere they can. And just like you walk into these homes, they're looking for ways to do it so that way they make more money on every single deal. And this doesn't fall on the selling agent. The selling agent is still making quite a bit of money. It falls upon you as the consumer, and you, the client, are also not getting representation in that deal. Could you imagine buying a new home and not having any representation, Joe?
Well, knowing what I know, Chris, no. So what I hear you saying is that part of what the settlement has enforced is that you as a consumer will need and candidly want a buyer representation agreement. But the builders, they're taking this lawsuit and they're looking for an opportunity to further restrict their customer, their buyer, their consumer from having a buyer rep, because one, they're wanting to save money, and two, they're wanting to possibly shortcut the process, restrict diligence, do the kinds of things that just make it easier and better for the builder, but not the consumer. and they may or may not, depending on their scruples, be making it sound like that's a benefit to the buyer to shortcut some of these things and to just go directly to them, and it's going to be easy and they're going to take care of you. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah, it's not any good for you as a consumer. And when you buy, people are like, "Well, I buy a brand new car because nobody else has driven in it. Well, I buy a new house because nobody else has lived in it." Well, here's the thing. Cars are made at a whole entire different standard than homes are. A lot of the home structural stuff, for the most part, they're pretty good, but there's tons of YouTube, tons of TikTok videos like of
Yeah.
inspectors that actually just find an inspector. If you're buying a new home, type in whatever company that you're looking at and type in inspection fails, and you will find a whole bunch of stuff that you should be really concerned about. And us as realtors, we're going to guide you through this process. And I was just talking to one of my clients. It was like, "Oh man, I'm really happy that we didn't have to spend, more than 2 months looking for our home." And I was like, "Brother, you could have been spending a lot longer than what you were doing.
Yeah.
And buying a new home, if you don't have somebody walking with you that's been doing it over and over and over again, knows all the ins and outs, and knows which builders are going to, you know, possibly try to shortchange you." So that's why it's super important to
Yeah.
have representation.
A builder recently filed a lawsuit against an inspection company for their YouTube channel because the builder was alleging that this particular inspector was singling them out and picking on them on their construction defects. And, so they wanted to have the courts force this inspector to stop doing that. And I thought that that was an interesting solution, when the solution could be address it with your subcontractors and clean up your product, right? So as we put a pin in this one, Chris, I think the easiest analogy is kind of looking at the idea of go to court. And if you had to go to court, you don't have to have an attorney. You could be unrepresented. You could have a cheap or free attorney, or you could have an attorney that, however the compensation's worked out, maybe when you win the court case, the other party's going to pay their fee. But however the compensation is going to work out, that person is there to be your fiduciary, to be your advocate, to work for the best thing that's possible for you. They're going to put you ahead of their paycheck, right? And you're going to get the experience of having that protection and representation of that person. Well, you go through a process that you may not go through very often. Well, while I wish for every person I talk to not go to court, I do wish for every person I talk to own a home. So there's a little bit of a 180 there. And whether it's us or not, candidly, we believe so deeply in you being protected and represented that we'd say, even if it wasn't us, but we're ready to apply for the job, that you would be represented. So it's just a little disheartening that our community members that are our builders, that are building our neighborhoods and our communities, are actually trying to take a moment in history and leverage that in a way to kind of just help their bottom line and not actually help our community, not actually help our neighbors. And they're doing that by trying to be opportunistic in our industry. We're all in it to provide for our families, to make money and all that kinds of stuff. So, we're not talking about a woe is me or a, poor orphans and children's moment or anything like that. But we are talking about, at the end of the day, one of the really impactful things about what we do is we live in our communities, Chris. Our clients become our neighbors. Our clients become our friends. Our clients become people who run on school boards and city councils. And, like it's not a turn and burn situation. It's an investment in the future, and somebody that we're probably going to see at Costco and those kinds of things. So the last topic, because we promised you 3 hot topics for today, is what is up with interest rates. So Chris, what did the Fed say the beginning of the year?
Beginning of the year there, and we even talked about this in one of our episodes.
Yeah.
We talked about how there was supposed to be multiple changes throughout the
How'd
whole
that go,
year.
bro?
We were talking about 5 or 6. I mean, if up is a change, I guess that's correct.
You're right. Right.
And so far, we just haven't had any real changes
No reprieve.
until until recently. We've been seeing a trend, and I don't want to speak too much on it, but
Yeah.
it's expected to start declining
Yeah.
towards the end of this year, and which is good and bad at the same time because everybody's getting used to these home prices with the interest
Right.
rates.
Right.
As soon as those home prices or interest rates start going down,
Yeah.
prices are going to go up because then that's going to bring a lot more people out of the woodworks to
Hmm.
start searching for homes. One of the biggest, and here's a hack for you guys. All right, one of the biggest objections that I get right now: interest rates,
Hmm.
interest rates. Chris, as
Hmm.
soon as interest rates go down, I'm I'm
Yep.
I'm gunning, and a lot of people are just waiting, sitting there waiting. So as soon as those go down, you guys are going to be in have a whole entire different type of competition.
Yeah. Most markets over the last 12 months, while we've been dealing with higher rates than we're used to, while we've been dealing with the fact that what they said was going to happen in the fiscal policy did not happen and all that, they still have a net gain appreciation. Meaning, if we were looking at a home on 7/16/2023 versus 7/16/2024, which is when we're recording this right now, and it'll publish in a couple of days, but if we're looking at something exactly 360 days before, that's the same bed, bath, square feet, location, all that, the price is anywhere from 3 to 7% less than it is today. And so what it turns out is what a lot of us believe, and I say this in jest, is that if the government's lips are moving, they're lying. So they said they were going to move the rate multiple times. They didn't. And where we find ourselves today is their economists are real estate industry economists, other economists that track multiple industries. They're all pointing to that the job numbers and the inflation numbers and the this number and the that number are coming into alignment where there will be some reprieve in the rates. But as my wise friend Chris said, you guys need to understand the industry's got a couple of buttons that when you push this button or pull this lever, certain things happen. And when rates drop, you are guaranteed prices will go up. And even when the rates don't drop, that's the lesson of the last 12 months, prices still go up more years than they do not. That's why the conventional wisdom is real estate is an appreciating asset. There are some down years, but when you look at history, there are not as many down years as there are up years. There might be up years that are slow, but they're still up. So do not miss an opportunity. Whether you should, would, could, you're ready, you're willing, you're able to buy, like whatever that is, here's what we would encourage you. Reach out to us. We have 3,000 partners across the nation. We probably have someone wherever you live. And let's have a conversation. Let's build a plan and let's look at some future casting to see what the value of owning that property for 1 year would be, what the value of owning that property for 5 years would be, and what the value would be if, say, you bought 5 properties over the next 10, 15 years and what that would look like. So with that being said, Chris, where are we at now?
So, I kind of want to give people quick numbers so you guys just kind of wrap this around your head to understand where we're at. And this is just King County and Snohomish County out of Washington State. And just in the last 24 hours, which we are recording this July 16th, in the last 24 hours, there's been 86 new listings that hit the market. You want to take a stab at how many went pending?
Yeah.
197. So
86
there's,
and 197.
yeah, yeah, and transactions completed. So that means that listing sold is 164. So I'm just telling you, exactly. So more homes are becoming unavailable than they are going on the market,
Right.
and we've been seeing a lot of this
Yeah.
trend over and
Yeah.
over and over
Yeah.
again. And
Yeah.
this is why it's right now, we talked about it, affordability is one of the biggest things preventing people from getting into it. And that's where the interest rate question comes along.
Yeah.
But as soon as that interest rate goes along, my goodness, it's going to be really, really crazy out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And it's been true. We got a couple markers we can look at. You can look at the beginning of the pandemic, or you can look at the beginning of when the interest rate started to increase very quickly. And what has been true through both of those significant cycles is that in most metropolitan markets, as Chris pointed out, in the greater Seattle area, properties sell faster than they come on the market. So that is what drives low inventory. Why is the inventory low? In a nutshell, we did address this in a previous episode as well, but construction came to a near stop after the housing recession that started in 2008. And we have not caught up. Our population has grown, our cities have grown, our states are growing. Idaho, the other market we serve, is the fastest growing state in the nation. Right? There's construction all over the place. And if you drove around, you'd feel like maybe there was enough homes. And when you dig into the local data, there's not enough homes. So we just, guys, we care about you so much. We just can't stress enough that, home ownership is the backbone of the middle class. It is the backbone of wealth building. If you own one home, let's talk about maybe owning a rental home. If you own 5 homes, let's talk about maybe owning 10 rental homes or going to an apartment building. If you're not yet in home ownership, let's talk about the ways that we can help you claw into home ownership so that you are building your wealth and not someone else's wealth. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of PLACE Navigators. We ask that you would like, follow, subscribe. But most importantly, if you do 2 things for us, if one, you'd write us a review and be as honest as you want, because we want this to be valuable to you. And 2, if one of these episodes or one of these comments or something you hear sounds like it could help somebody shoot them a text with a link and put this information in their hands. We're doing this because we want to help you win. We want to help you build your wealth. Until next time, we'll catch you then.
Later, guys.